What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Savvy Sloth. Let's skip the long intro. If you clicked on the video, you know what this is about. Today we're going to be ranking the bosses in Luigi's Mansion 3 on the Switch. Just make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below, and let's hop right into it. So basically what I am doing is I am scoring individually 1 through 5 the originality of the fight, the concept art behind the boss, the presentation, in other words, the battle stage of the fight, and the difficulty of it. I rank those 1 through 5, total up the score, and obviously lowest would be the worst ranked boss at 18, and the highest score would be the number 1 boss ranked at number 1. Starting off the list at number 18 is obviously the first boss you encounter in the game, the Steward. He is a blue bellhop and receptionist ghost that is first seen in the opening sequence in the grand lobby. You will fight him in the underground parking garage located on the basement floor after rescuing your trusty scientist companion Egad. Pretty much his only move is going to be to chuck suitcases at you, which have a projectile speed of about 2 miles an hour, so these are easily avoidable. He has very low health and no protection versus your strobe, so rightfully making this the first boss, the easiest boss in the game. It's a good intro to the boss fight mechanics, but very simple. Next up at number 17 on this list, we have the second boss you will encounter in the game, and that is Chambrea, who is a purple maid ghost that you fight in various rooms throughout the 5th floor after she snatches up and swallows Egad's briefcase that you will learn contains the Luigi upgrade to your Polterkitty. She has even less HP than the Steward and uses her hand duster to make Luigi sneeze throughout the fight. Every time you get a hold of her for a few slams, she's just going to scurry along to the next room. So this fight is not really difficult, it's just longer chasing her around. It's another good warm-up fight to begin the game, which serves as another teaching moment on how to use the plunger in battle, as you'll need to grab her via the briefcase in her belly to perform your slam. Number 16, we have on our list Chef Soufflé, who is actually the 4th boss you encounter in the game, and he is a French ghost fought in the kitchen of the mezzanine floor. Again, this is another fairly simple fight. His mechanics are very similar to the Chambrea fight. I like the concept art behind the ghost, his bright radiant eyes but dark skin that almost resembles being covered in grease and smoke, with the cliche French mustache really nails what they were going for. He has more HP than any of the first 3 bosses you fight, but overall it's the same as Chambrea fight in a sense that you need to avoid his frying pan death spin and just plunger it away from him before slamming him away. Nothing different than what we have seen so far. Number 15 on my list is this game's version of Paul Blart Mall Cop with the overweight and cowardly security guard of the hotel shops named Kruller. Kruller is such a coward, he locks himself away behind bars and frantically finds a water gun in the lost and found to wield during the boss fight. I like the presentation of this fight as it requires you to use Luigi to reach the battle stage behind bars, but reminder, any drop of water will instantly kill Luigi, so that water gun is lethal right now. On top of that, his sunglasses protect him from your strobe bulb, so you have to pry those off his face before you can do any real damage to Kruller. This is the first fight that introduces a complex of fighting mechanics, so that is why I have Kruller ranked ahead of Chef Soufflé, even though you fight them in reverse order. Number 14 on my list is someone you fight in 2 different parts of the story, but for the sake of this list, I only rank them once, and that is the annoying little pest Polterkitty. Polterkitty appears twice in the game to steal the elevator button and send you on a wild goose chase to retrieve it. During my first playthrough, I found this about as annoying as chasing the bunny in the basement of Mario 64 for the first time. I wanted to cry when I was 5 years old because I couldn't catch it. But after I learned how to do it, it just got easier and easier. And that is the same for the Polterkitty. I could not stun this damn thing with my strobe bulb no matter how patient I was being, as Egad instructed me to be. But once I realized the point in time to strike him, it became a cakewalk of a fight. This again is just a long battle chasing the cat from floor to floor, room to room, more so than it is difficult. Number 13, red beard, gloves, hair with a large bald spot, vibrant yellow eyes, and a gold crown with rubies. King Macfrights is a Scottish medieval style king ghost fought in the Colosseum of his very own castle floor. He launches himself into battle armor on the jousting playing field and hypes up the crowd right before being a pain in my butt. This fight is not hard, but annoying, at least from my experience. I enjoy the presentation, the build-up sequence, and concept art behind this boss, more so than I enjoyed the fight. And this is because there is such a small, tiny, itsy-bitsy window for you to strobe bulb stun him after he gallops at you with his lance and plunges to strike. You are basically running in circles waiting for him to charge, and it is not difficult to avoid the attacks, but it took me way too many tries to try and stun him. But when you finally do stun him, you're just going to have to plunge shot him in the chest to slam him away. You will have to do this 3 times to break the armor that he is in, and it will speed up with each phase. But afterwards, you'll fight him without the armor, which is a piece of cake to finish off. At number 12 on my list is Dr. Potter, located on the 7th floor Garden Suites, and I have him ranked here for many of the same reasons as King Macfrights. I love the concept art of this boss ghost, and the floor environment as a whole is pristine, but the fight pissed me off on how tedious it was. Dr. Potter is a botanist ghost who relies on his Venus flytrap plant to do the dirty work. You have to manipulate the plant into striking one of the other plants on the floor or the bench before you can pick up the buzzsaw and sever his neck, leaving Dr. Potter vulnerable for you to attack and slam him. I was running around for what felt like hours on both playthroughs trying to get this friggin' plant to bite. Some boss fights gave me different experiences on each playthrough, but this was the same both times. Just aimlessly running in circles until I got a hit. Like I said, with how I scored these, I value difficulty in boss fights, but this just felt like plain luck at some points. I did, however, very much enjoy using the buzzsaw in battle, so for that reason I have Dr. Potter ranked a little bit higher than the others. So far we have covered 6 of the first 7 bosses in the storyline as being the worst, which is just pure coincidence and not intentional, but now the list jumps around more and gets more interesting. I have Johhny Deepend ranked at number 11. His concept art, presentation, and originality all scored high for me, but this fight was just insanely too easy for this stage of the game, so that is why it's not ranked higher for me. He is a late game boss on the 13th floor, and being one of the last 2 bosses you fight before Hellen Gravely, I was expecting a lot more than a lap around the pool and 1 volleyball to the face. That's all the fight was. I would have loved to see multiple stages in this fight like Johhny was a triathlete instead of just a pool noodle. How much better would it be if you fought him in the pool, then in the yoga room, by the dumbbells, then finish in the treadmill room? The fitness center was one of the most original and cool concept designs in the game, so this just felt like a giant missed opportunity. Now we're getting into the top 10. My pick here is the very last floor level boss you will fight before facing off against the final 2, and that is DJ Phantasmagloria and her crew of dancers. Let's go DJ Phanta for short. She is a diva disc jockey, totally rocking that Beyonce Goldmember Foxy Cleopatra look. And overall, this is a fun boss fight that has good originality and tests your memory. You have to memorize which dancer has the elevator button as they jam out to a session of Hide the Weenie in the first phase, and in the second phase, the DJ is one of 2 bosses that has 450 HP, which is the most besides the 2 final bosses. It's going to be a tough and long fight, so just make sure you watch out for those flying vinyls. But again, I was a little disappointed at this stage in the game of the boss leading up to the final. Moving on to number 9 is the Pharaoh Ghost fought on the 10th floor in the Tomb Suites, and that is Serpci. This is probably my favorite single ghost illustration in the game. Her gold complexion, bright eyes, and jewelry mixed with her badass serpent crown and dreadlocks was just a masterpiece. Not to mention the fight itself is pretty badass. She uses the sand around her to create a giant Medusa-like head of hers to attack you with her dreads that are now serpents. She'll also create fists with the sand, ground pound you, and launch other projectiles. It's just another great design by Next Level Games. At number 8, we have the elegant and majestic yet enraged pianist Amadeus Wolfgeist. He is actually the 5th floor boss you will encounter on the 4th floor, and for an early game boss, he is tough. He is the other boss I mentioned with 450 HP, and this fight requires you to literally use every gadget and trick in your bag, and that is why I love it so much. From top to bottom, just a fantastic fight, from the character design, the background music, the difficulty, everything I loved. I enjoy having to use all my tricks to conquer a boss, and in this fight you will have to avoid everything from flying chairs, his piano key projectiles, the ground pound wave. You're gonna fight ads. You have to successfully suck up a bomb and land it inside the piano 3 times, not just once, and then plunge shot him down before you can smash Wolfgeist around. Honestly, this was a top 3 fight of mine, but the scoring system I used had him land here around 8. Next up at number 7, we have T-Rex and Ugg. This fight was on the Unnatural History Museum floor, and the names in this game are absolutely flawless. The entrance and suspense build-up leading up to this fight is what sold it for me, and visually the T-Rex skeleton looked jaw-dropping. The presentation of this fight is everything. Having the T-Rex stationary as you pelt him with eggs, and then you actually have to force him to eat Luigi in the second phase, I thought was hilariously genius. Then afterwards there is Ugg, the ghost behind it all, that surfaces after you take down the T-Rex, who looks like a simpleton caveman version of Fred Flintstone. Pretty cool how they gave him one of the bones to fight with, and aside from his ground pound, he's fairly easy to take down. And lastly, love how the bone bonks him on the head on the way into your vacuum. At number 6, I have the magician triplets named Nikki, Lindsey, and Ginny, found on the frustrating Twisted Sweets level, and I say frustrating because during my first playthrough I was completely lost trying to find the room for the boss fight. This was a hard fight that tested your patience, reflexes, and memory, and I barely survived the first time around. You have to take them down one by one using your burst jump seconds before they corner you with the spinning hat attack, and then yanking them out to slam. The fight gets harder and harder. It speeds up with every phase. The lights start to flicker on and off. Every time you take down a triplet, their hat is replaced by a bomb, so the next time that hat attack comes around, you better memorize which hat has the triplet in it, or you're going to eat that bomb in the face. I love the battle stage of this and how it gets harder and harder, and the challenge it presents itself with. Here we go, now we're into the top 5. Now, Paranormal Productions was probably my favorite floor in the game, and at number 5 I have the boss fight that came with it, the Kaiju Ghost. After you retrieve Morty's megaphone, he casts you in the scene of his movie where you have to fight a Reptar Godzilla-like monster that is terrorizing the city. The monster costume itself looks amazing with the contrasting use of biochemical green and blue colors, and this was just such an original and astonishing concept that I gave it a perfect score for originality, concept art, and presentation. The only reason it is not top 3 is because it wasn't very difficult, just fun. You have to dodge his fireballs and jabs until he launches an orb your way, and then you can blow it right back in his face with the help of Luigi, so it's very simple. And technically Morty, the film director, is the boss on this floor, but you just suck him up with ease after this Kaiju Ghost movie fight. And I just want to say I think Morty and Luigi both deserve Oscars for this one. Now number 4, I've seen a lot of people stress out and rage quit during this fight on YouTube, but I loved it, and that is Clem, found in the Boiler Works. Clem is a greaseball mechanic working down in the sewage tank area of the hotel, and I think the devs did a great job with his concept art and the battle stage of this fight. You're fighting on a rubber duck inflatable inside one of the water tanks that is outlined with spikes on the edge. If your inflatable pops, you have to blow it back up and hop in the tank. You control where you are going in the water by sucking and blowing with your Polterkitty, so it is difficult at first. Once you get a hold of Clem, you want to launch him at the spikes so you can stun and slam him outside the water. You repeat this 3 times like most fights before it's finally over. Now, with these top 5 fights, it's mostly because of how original and unique they are, and Clem is no different. It was a nice switch up at this stage in the game from the normal avoid, then stun, then slam boss fight mechanics. And again, the playing field and environment was top notch for me. Number 3, I don't know how this wouldn't be in anyone's top 5, and that is the sinister pirate shark Captain Fishhook, found on the 12th floor of the hotel. This fight was both a pain in the butt and a ton of fun, which is exactly what I was expecting at this stage in the game, unlike Johhny Deepend and DJ Fanta. Fishhook morphs into the wood of the pirate ship floor in the first phase, trying to swallow you up as his minions launch gunpowder barrels at you. You have to catch these barrels and successfully land them in Fishhook's mouth before you can chip away at his health. This probably took me 100 tries the first time. He has decent HP of 300, so there are multiple phases but follow the same battle mechanics of launching the gunpowder barrels into his mouth. I mean, just everything about it. Using the plunger to avoid slipping into his mouth reminds me of scenes from the Titanic, and I was very pleased that they used a shark ghost that was not unmasked by another ghost underneath. This is the only boss like that, so it is unique and deserving of its originality score, and again, overall excellent execution. And for our last 2, if you've played the game, it's obvious who they are now, and that is the final 2 bosses, Hellen Gravely and King Boo. Hellen is the evil owner of the Last Resort Hotel and that damn Polterkitty, but also the sidekick to King Boo. Defeating her allows you to free Mario and open up the passage to King Boo's suite. Now the fight itself entails exactly what a final boss in a game should, and that is mastering your skill set. You have to be able to swiftly interchange between Luigi and Gooigi throughout the entire fight. Luigi stays up top to avoid the revolving laser beams and Hellen herself, while Gooigi is tasked with flipping and plunging the switches down below to retract the beams up top. Hellen has a lot of HP at 600, so this sequence goes on and on as it progresses. It gets harder, faster, the laser beams. She can even flood Gooigi out from underneath with the water pipe, so you have to move quick down there. And just overall, being able to win this fight proves that you have mastered the game, which is why I love it. And the final boss of the game is also our #1 ranked fight, and that is the notorious King Boo, the game's main antagonist. Be mindful, entering and completing this fight will end your playthrough and there is no going back. But like every Mario or Luigi game, the fight takes place on the roof of the hotel and is extremely familiar to most Bowser and King Boo battles. He has an undisclosed amount of HP and a plethora of moves that you need to avoid in order to survive. Lightning, ground pounds, tongue sweeps, fireballs, bombs. Now he does his moves in a distinct order, so you will memorize them after the first roundabout, but on the last of his moves, you have to successfully suck in a bomb and launch it in his mouth. That is your only window to inflict damage, and if you miss that opportunity, the sequence starts over. But after you land the bomb attack, you will be able to slam him around with the help of Gooigi, but then he multiplies into 2, and the same sequence of moves follows suit with 2 Boos now. And then after completing that phase, guess what? He splits into 3, and it gets even more hectic and ridiculous. It's a long and hard-fought battle, but definitely the most satisfying boss fight in the game in our eyes, and that is why he is at #1. So thank you guys for watching. Leave a comment and like and subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned because we are going to be doing a lot more of these ranked lists for video games. And as always, stay savvy.